Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to a rare review of Sea Power Naval Combat in the Missile Age. A game that very much so deserves an extra little shout out after I also did a stream of it last week. So if you want to see more raw footage, you can go back and watch that. But for now, we are going to summarize the strengths and the weaknesses, as there are a few, of Sea Power. To begin with, let me sell this to its core audience, shall I? Sea Power is Command Modern Operations, but with graphics. Which might sound like a rather silly thing, like, oh, it has graphics. Is that something special? In high-level military simulators, yes, as Command Modern Operation looks like this. It is, quite literally, Google Maps with 2D sprites. Oh, and an Excel spreadsheet. Actually, several Excel spreadsheets. Loads of Excel spreadsheets. It would not be too much of an exaggeration to say that the majority of the game is familiarizing yourself with Excel spreadsheets. And so, Sea Power actually having graphics, a visual interface, it really does help quite a lot, as one of the biggest issues with really getting into Command, which is an excellent game, mind you, is figuring out how to interact with the game effectively. Everything from ordering the launch of an aircraft to a rearmament to actually deploying weapons is kind of a challenge in Command, as everything is done via sub-menus or mission planning. Which actually, again, when you figure it out, works out surprisingly well. Very effective. And I actually believe that Sea Power could use a couple of those mechanics for this game as well. But the simple addition of graphics is a big deal and makes the game immediately far more approachable for the average gamer. And Sea Power does not skimp on the detail despite this. Even though it is a far more graphical game, it is in no way dumbed down or particularly inferior to Command Modern Operations. It probably doesn't have quite as autistic a simulation or a database, but it is more than close enough for government work. Now, the version of the game that should be available by the time you see this video is an early access version. It has got several standalone scenarios that you can play, and more will be added over the course of the game's development, in addition to modding tools and a dynamic campaign, which will come right about halfway through 2025 is the current plan. But enough waffling about. This part was pretty much assuming that you already had an idea what Sea Power was. For those of you who don't know what Sea Power is at all, and you're wondering if this might be a game for you as a more casual strategy game enjoyer, let's get into some details, shall we? As the name indicates, this is first and foremost a naval war game, a simulator in essence. Although, as the name also implies, Sea Power, of course, also includes a lot of things that fly in the modern age. And sink, controllably, most of the time anyways. So you've also got aircraft, helicopters, and submarine. Even full-on aircraft carriers, with fully functional air wings and attack loadout. So you can equip your aircraft with long-range air intercepts, shorter-range dogfight setups, SEED, ASW, all of that good stuff. This in turn also, of course, means that you will be expected to engage in the full variety and spectrum of naval operations that we would expect to see in a Cold War-style scenario. This includes attack on air bases, attacks on enemy shipping, of course, and most interestingly of all, the hunting of enemy submarines. And to do this, you have a wide variety of tools at your disposal. Now, the early access version I got access to did not have a tutorial. Now, that didn't really bother me all that much because I'm familiar with these concepts. I am hoping that the full release version, or more correctly, the early access version that will be available on the 12th, has a tutorial, because, you are probably going to need it. The controls themselves are quite intuitive. You click on a unit, then you click on the map to give it an order. Simple enough. You click on the unit again and you get an order drop-down menu, including firing specific weapons at enemies or changing formations. All of this is very nice and very intuitive. But if you haven't played a game like this, and to be entirely honest, there aren't all that many games like this, then you might be wondering what the hell an ASW mission is at Deep Submarine Warfare. And you might also be wondering what all of the weird little toys are. What does this missile do? What does that missile do? What are those weird things on the front of the boat that looks like mortars or missile launchers? Oh, now they're apparently firing depth charges. Well, that's weird. The game does have a information tab available that you can click on a unit and request additional information. Here you will be given a short blurb as to what the unit is supposed to do, and a little bit of historical information as well. You are also given a general idea of what it's capable of by having it present to you its weapons with further explanations, and sensors with, yet again, further explanations. And easily enough, if you click on a weapon, it will also tell you what it's supposed to be targeting. This will at least give you a basic idea of what you're supposed to be doing with which weapons. Though this is where a tutorial is really required, because simply knowing that a missile can shoot down an aircraft doesn't really tell you what kind of missile you should be using against what kinds of targets, or how to even engage in modern-day aerial combat, or which missile on which boat to use against this and that target, which missile has the longest range, and so on and so on. Now, these are things that you will naturally pick up over the course of playing the game, and it offers several, as mentioned, standalone scenarios right now of varying complexities, as these stars don't necessarily indicate difficulty, but more the amount of stuff you're expected to understand and be able to engage with. For example, running a full invasion effort would need to maintain air superiority via carrier-based aircraft, whilst also striking against land-based targets and guarding against submarines at the same time. This requires quite wide and specific knowledge, and this is where there are some weak spots in the game. See, one of the benefits and disadvantages with Command Modern Operations is that it uses a lot of mission orders, where you create an area on the map, and inside of this area, you then give orders to a group of units that you select. Say, for example, that you're bombing an airfield. Well, okay, you will select the area in which the airfield is. Then, depending on what you've detected in that area, you will get a list of targets. You will then assign aircraft to this mission. Some of these aircraft might have the seed mission, in which case they will patrol the area and, well, carry out the suppression of enemy air defenses mission that they've been given, automatically attacking radar installations in that specific mission area. Meanwhile, other aircraft will be bombing, where they each come with their own bomb load, and you can assign these bomb loads to targets within the zone as and when required. Like, you drop 2 bombs here, you drop 2 bombs there, and so on. This allows you to, in essence, set up the whole mission, including the bombing runs, including the seed operations, including fighter escorts, and then allow the game to carry out the mission. You can intervene and issue manual orders later on directly if you so choose, but ideally you should be able to set up a mission area and allow the fighter pilots to take care of everything else. This you can't really do at the moment in Sea Power. If you are going to be attacking a major installation, you need to launch the seed planes, then vector them towards the combat area. You need to launch the protective fighters and then make sure that they're keeping up with the seed planes or slowing one or the other down. You can't tell them to escort yet, unfortunately. Then you need to launch the bombers, and they need to keep up with everything else too. If you encounter any aerial threats along the way, you have to micromanage the engagement, unless you simply tell your aircraft to fire at anything that flies, which is often a bad idea, particularly in areas where there might be civilian air traffic, as your pilots are not quite intelligent enough to distinguish between a Boeing 747 and a MiG if you give them the full reins and you do not designate the Boeing as specifically a neutral. Then when you arrive on scene, you need to target the enemy radar for the seed operations, and then you have to go back and target the bombers to attack whatever you're currently bombing. And you need to do this on damn near a per weapon basis. So if you're carrying, say, 12 bombs, you've only got the option to drop 1 bomb, drop 2 bombs, drop 4 bombs, or 8 bombs. And that's a little bit wonky. It would be ideal if you could select a bunch of targets, a whole box, and then go, okay, right, you are attacking this. I want 4 bombs here, 4 bombs here, 4 bombs over there. And have, as in Command Modern Operations, a specific window that then keeps track of your ordnance. So if you've got 5 aircraft, each carrying 2 bombs, you will see the 5 aircraft in their own window, each with the 2 bombs that you can then assign. Whereas in Sea Power, you have to kind of remember, okay, you are bombing this, and you are bombing that, and you've got to do that on the map rather than a mission setup. This degree of micromanagement makes high complexity operations very difficult. Or, well, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say very difficult. So you can always, of course, simply just pause the game and issue the orders, but it makes it far more difficult than it needed to be. It also makes certain things like ASW operations also kind of annoying. So you need to pick the aircraft and then manually order it. Okay, you're going to place a passive sonar buoy here, 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 and then draw out the net. Whereas again, in modern operations, you would simply designate an area and then leave your aircraft to fill that area with passive sonar buoys. So some more automation and mission structure would be great. Now, there is a way to sort of semi-automate things, like you can give your helicopters an ASW mission, for example, but now you don't have enough control anymore. I did this on one occasion, and my ASW helis just simply started dropping passive sonar buoys in the middle of my own fleet, where they would do me precious little good. And another aircraft simply just flew off somewhere and was never heard of again. So, yeah, complications. This is also where the graphics thing comes back in. So the graphics makes it a lot easier to visualize the battlefield, and also potentially to select units and make sure that they're all doing what you want them to do. But if you're going to want to do things properly, you're going to want to use the menu so that you can keep track of things. This is where we encounter a new problem, the formations. For some utterly inexplicable reason, the game occasionally rearranges your formations for you. I had a group of fighters heading out to intercept incoming enemy fighters, and everything was going well. I fired my long-range weapons, shot down their fighters, and looked around like, okay, well, all of their weapons missed my fighters in return, I guess I'm safe. Only to notice that my AWACS, my Airborne Early Warning System, had decided to join the fighter squadron for some reason, and was now steaming towards the combat zone, directly towards a pair of missiles, and it got itself shot down. Because I couldn't get it to stay by itself. It had this pathological need to join up with something else, and it doesn't even make sense. Again, an airborne radar going, hey, I'm an air superiority fighter now. And hey, it's great that you can create your own formations, because there are absolutely situations in which bringing along an electronic warfare plane, for example, along with your fighters is a great idea. But creating and even cancelling formations automatically is a big no-no. Big no-no. The UI, too, is not as clear as it could be. It is kind of difficult to tell whether or not you've actually got a unit selected, and whether or not you've got the formation selected, or a single unit within the formation. It's happened several times where I've clicked to a unit, I'm looking at the unit, I believe I have the unit selected, then I click the map, and a fighter on the other side of the map turns around and heads in the opposite direction, because that's the one I actually had selected, despite being zoomed in on the helicopter, for example. So a clearer indicator of what exactly you're ordering about would be lovely. There might also be a key in-game to jump to the unit on the minimap, but if there is, I have yet to find it. Though in between all of the critique here, and this is positive criticism, by the way, because the core gameplay itself is excellent. If you are looking for a good milsim, this is it. It is an excellent milsim, a exceptional one, in fact. Like, once this gets all of the scenarios it can and a full-on dynamic campaign, if it weren't for the sheer scale of operations in Command Modern Operations, I might just consider making the switch entirely. I might even go so far as to say that if this, concept gets expanded upon, it might even make Command Operations a little bit outdated, honestly. And I don't say that lightly, but in between all of the harsh critiques, I will give it a great deal of praise for one thing as well. Map drawing tools, which again sounds like such a silly thing to comment on, but believe you me, when you are keeping track of all of this nonsense, having the ability to simply draw on the map is actually really goddamn useful. It would in fact be nice if I could draw more things on the map. Give me little tokens so I can go, okay, I heard a submarine over there, or at least I think it was a submarine. I would like to place a small submarine token on the map and go like that, shab, there. Or there was a ship over there, but I've lost radar contact with it, so boat was here. How far could it go? Then I could begin to guess and speculate. Okay, it only moves so and so fast. Then you can draw out a circle. It has to be within this circle and so on. So the fact that there are drawing tools in-game to begin with is great, absolutely wonderful, as far too many of these sim games forget the ability to scribble on the goddamn map. And speaking of scribbles, another complaint, the information panel for various vehicles and units require a bit more work. They don't have adequate explanations of the range of aircraft, for example. All of them say 0 nautical miles, which is, of course, not the case. That is presumably going to be added in at launch, and they simply didn't have time to add it into the early access version, I am presuming, or, well, the pre-early access version, more correctly. And information about the deployment envelope of weapons, too, would be very nice, as I had one fighter constantly circling a pair of enemy scouts again and again and again. I'd ordered the aircraft to engage them, but it simply refused. It would set up its attack run, not fire any weapons, and then circle back again. Okay, so I'm thinking, what's going on here? I look at the altitude. It's traveling at 100 feet above sea level. Right. Is that too low, maybe? So I raise it up to 1,000, and voila, there you go. It's now able to fire its weapons because it was the deployment altitude of the weapon that was the problem. Again, this could also be reflected in the little status window at the bottom of the screen. The status window should give a lot more detailed information about what exactly the unit is doing. So when the unit is setting up an attack run, it should say, and it does, setting up an attack run. If it then fails to fire anything, it should give you, in essence, an error message saying, I didn't attack because I'm too low to fire my missiles. Okay, makes sense. Or, why is my ship turning around? Well, it's because what I'm trying to shoot at is actually within the minimum firing distance, so I've got to travel back a little bit to get within range. Or I need to close to get into the maximum distance of my weapon, and so on. More information is of vital importance in a game of this kind of complexity, as it can get very frustrating to look at a unit that apparently isn't doing what it's being ordered to do because it has an already existing order that trumps the order that you are trying to give it. And a final note about information, by the way, Popups. God, and Popups. Hearts of Iron 3, one of my favorite grand strategy games ever, had this incredible pop-up system where you could customize in detail exactly what pop-ups you wanted to see and exactly what they would do. You wanted to be alerted when, say, one of your navies was attacked. Okay, do you want that to simply be a pop-up that appears on screen and goes, hey, dude, your boats are under attack? Or would you like it to pause the game? Or maybe you only want to see it down in the little message box in the corner. Excellent system that they completely scrapped because apparently pop-ups weren't elegant enough. I disagree. And in a game like this, oh, you need pop-ups. You need them. I need to be able to customize a system to say, okay, when I hear of a goblin, for example, game needs to pause immediately because goblin means unidentified underwater contact. Probably a submarine, probably about to sink a lot of my very valuable stuff, and I need to be told about that ASAP. And the current state of the game, you might never actually be told unless you keep looking at the minimap to actually notice that underwater noise that one of your passive sonar buoys detected. Having the ability to pause or get a pop-up when one of your aircraft is shot down would also be valuable, or when a new radar contact is detected. Again, anything that makes the game easier to interact with by pausing it and making you aware of what's going on. When you've got dozens of units on screen, there are missiles flying, there are dogfights happening, you're trying to cast up an ASW net at the same time as you're orchestrating bombing and seed operations 500 miles away, it would be really, really nice to get an actual warning of the fact that 500 miles the other way, something is exploding. But these are all easily overcomable and solvable problems, as the core of the game, again, is absolutely excellent. It contains all of the complexity of command modern operations, it allows you to play with all of the lovely tools, and allows you to do all of the fun modern military scenarios, without having it look like an Excel spreadsheet. And whilst it could be improved with the addition of a little bit of Excel spreadsheet, just because that's just how goddamn complicated modern warfare is, it is an enormous step up, a fantastic one. And for anyone who's a fan of milsims, especially naval warfare style stuff, this is an absolute must-buy game. And with that ringing endorsement, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.